Well, just 2 days before the first debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, a New York Times Siena poll reveals this election is virtually a dead heat, even after all that northern summer upheaval. On the question of who would you vote for out of Trump and Harris, it is 47 to 48 in favour of Trump. Joining us live now is Curtin University's Dean of Global Future, Joe Siracusa. Joe, good morning. So, has the sugar hit now worn off for Kamala Harris?
Good morning, Pete. Yes, I believe it has. Look, that poll is much deeper than we think it is. While it suggests that it's a dead heat, it also tells us some interesting things, and that is that Donald Trump is more popular now than he was in 2016 or 2017 by his own people. It's about 46, 47%. And that he is favored on the major issues, economy and in the inflation and on the border, and that a lot of Americans see him at the center as a centrist compared to Kamala Harris, who's seen left of center. Now, Americans, Pete, they like the vital center very much. And so I think the poll is very favorable to Mr. Trump, not so favorable. And 28% of these likely voters say they want to know a little more about Kamala Harris than they know right now. That's why this debate is very important, because she's going to try to define herself.
This all comes on a day when, and look, this isn't going to be that surprising to close political observers of American politics, but you've got Liz Cheney, her father Dick Cheney, also George W. Bush, the former Republican president. They're not endorsing Donald Trump this time around. The Cheneys are, in fact, going for Harris. Bush is just staying right out of it. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, Pete, I'm glad you asked me that. Look, I don't ever want the Cheneys voting for me or anybody I know. I mean, they're a dead loss. I mean, Dick Cheney is the guy who told the porker about weapons of mass destruction and got us in all kinds of strife for the next 10 years. And Liz Cheney's been on a personal vendetta against President Trump. I mean, they can jump up and down, but I don't think it's going to make much difference, and certainly not going to change Republicans' mind. President Trump has the resilience, that is, he has the hardcore Republican Party, and I get a kick out of Dick Cheney telling people, who to vote for. I mean, I'm still angry at that weapons of mass destruction business, because it just wasn't true.
Yeah. So just a final thought here ahead of the debate on Wednesday, Joe. How do you see this shaking down? I mean, I was reading in the Wall Street Journal on the weekend about Kamala Harris being locked up for 5 days in terms of debate prep, and Trump isn't actually even doing any prep. He's just talking to his team about policy.
Look, Pete, I think President Trump has this advantage. He has 12 years of television. Kamala Harris doesn't have 12 years of television.
That's a good point.
She's going to be kind of uptight. Yes, she's going to stay away from, certain things. She's not going to call him misogynist, and she's not going to call him a racist or anything. She's just going to try to persuade Americans that his shelf life is up. But at the end of the day, it isn't just about being telegenic. So that is very, very important. It's who's comfortable in front of a camera. And Donald Trump, whether you love him or hate him, Pete, he's a hell of a television personality. Yeah. And Kamala Harris, whatever you think of her, she's a disaster on television. I don't think she'd have her own show for 10 minutes.
All right, there you go. Joe Siracusa, good as always to chat to you. We will talk to you again soon.
Simon, we will have that debate 11 o'clock right here on this program, as it will be broadcast around the world. It's going to be, I think, compelling viewing on Wednesday.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is really what the Trump campaign have really wanted since Kamala became the nominee for the Democrats. They've really struggled to actually kind of have a wrestling match with her. She's been able to avoid those sort of contests and that type of scrutiny. Well, this is going to be two people in the same room having a go at each other. Yeah. It's exactly the type of format that Trump and his campaign would want. But there are also risks there too. I mean, there's no doubt that Biden very clearly gave a disastrous performance and it ended his candidacy. But I think we also need to bear in mind that Trump's performance was not a lot better. In fact, it was a pretty bad performance himself in the last presidential debate. It was just that Biden's was so much worse that it covered it up. So he needs a good performance too, but he's getting at least the contest that he's finally been looking for.
Simon Banks, Peter McGoran, gentlemen, thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
So, Linda Scott, Christy McSweeney, the Trump-Harris debate, I think whatever happens in that hour is probably going to be the bit that will push it just in this direction or just in that direction, and then basically nothing will be able to change it from that point. Now, of course, we don't know media rights and heart attacks and all, God forbid, right? But we don't know that. New York Times has just dropped an opinion poll, though, and it says Trump nationally is up by 1 point, 48-47. Interestingly, 60% of the country say it's headed in the wrong direction. 53% of women say they're going to vote Harris. 56% of men say they're going to vote Trump. So, the debate, you're obviously going to be cheering on for sort of the Kamala swing. If you could give her the free advice of how to win, what is the free advice? What's the thing you want to see? Do you want to see him sort of crumble in not knowing how to answer, melting like the Wicked Witch of the West, or her going, excuse me? What do you want to see?
Look, I think nobody can control what Donald Trump's going to do with this debate, not even his own team, right? This is why they've gone for the format where they can sort of mute the microphones. I was joking with my teenage son the other day and saying, oh, you know, debates don't matter that much. And he went, well, they did for Biden. I was like, oh, okay.
Well done, son.
You know, I defer to the wisdom of my children. So, look, I do think the debate will matter. I do think a lot of Americans will be tuning in. And will it determine whether or not they'll vote for, you know, A or B? Maybe not. Will it determine, though, I've talked to you about this before, will it determine whether they turn out to vote or not? I reckon yes. This is a big motivator for how well your candidate performs, 100%. Whether you get momentum in these final few weeks. Ballot papers go out this Friday. Yep. You know, this is really on their doorsteps, and Americans will tune in, make a decision about whether or not to vote, and then that will carry. So I think this is going to be a critical debate for Harris. She's got to perform well. She's got to get those clear messages across about how she'll make a difference. And the media will define that she's done all of those things even before we begin. And, of course, we'll do the political Gogglebox thing here. Again, I'll show you the highlights Wednesday night. Christy, you've got less than a minute here, but give me a sense of what you want to see out of this.
Well, I have to go to Parliament and watch our own debate leaders. Wow. I'll be watching that one as well in the background. Look, she has really struggled to stop waffling. People are making fun of the Democrats trying to win on the vibe. And I think that's true. I think she really needs to start speaking in sound bites around policy and around direction and around delivering and less waffle. And Donald Trump, he needs a lot less waffle too. It's a battle of wafflers at this debate, I think. They both need to be strong. My sense is he doesn't have to swing for what he seems to be the knockout blow, all right? Because by struggling and missing and struggling and missing and struggling and missing, the perception of the hour is going to be he was trying to knock her out and she won because she survived. No. Enjoy the discipline of the microphones being on and off. Answer the question that's there or not, because right now going into it, if he's in front, he's the one with more to lose, meaning you shrink yourself into a ball, make your way through the hour, and then push home whatever lead you've already got and don't fall into the moment. But free advice. See what happens. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Christy. We'll see you again next week.
2 months to go now until the US election. Polls have Donald Trump and Kamala Harris neck and neck. Harris leads nationally, but the former president is ahead in 4 of the 7 battleground states. And with the race so close, Trump's making some interesting campaign promises.
A lot of people are very interested in the footage of UFOs. Will you help push the Pentagon to release more footage, which a lot of people claim is available?
Oh, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I would do that. I'd love to do that. I have to do that.
The escalation. It's amazing. Trump also says he'll release classified documents on the JFK assassination, as well as files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Extraordinary. Joining us now is the man who famously served as Donald Trump's communications director for a whopping 11 days, a period of time now referred to as a Scaramucci. It's Anthony Scaramucci.
You can use it in a sentence.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, you could use it in a sentence like Liz Truss lasted 4.1 Scaramucci's, something like that.
Yeah.
Use it that way.
A unit of measurement. I like it. Very good. This is very exciting. Trump releasing UFO footage, JFK secrets. The question I have is, who is this meant to win over?
Well, he plays to the conspiracy crowd. So if you go into the darker pages of X, or formerly known as Twitter, that's the sort of crowd that he plays to. That's a big element of his base. And so they think all of these things are from a rotten establishment government. And so Trump plays to that. But you can hold me to this. If he does win, I predict he won't win. But the Kennedy assassination files won't see the light of day. Never going to happen.
You recently claimed Melania hates Donald, and nobody is hoping for a Kamala victory more than her. Are you still texting with her? How do you know all this?
No, listen, I was, it was a throwaway line. I didn't think it was going to get that much attention, but I was really more focused on my wife, who I was saying hates Trump almost as much as Melania hates him. But I judge it by the Melania standard. I think you can tell from her body language and where she was in places like Valentine's Day during the Stormy Daniel crisis. You could tell that that's a, to quote Governor Walz, that's a weird relationship. And so most things around Trump are weird. I happen to like her a lot, though. I think she's a very down-to-earth person, a good mother. And so I feel sort of bad that that got as much attention as it did. But, I think it's prima facie that you can see the displeasure in her face at this point, given who he is and what he's done during their marriage and what he's like as a human being. So, but there was more focus on my wife disliking Trump, which got me into trouble when I was in the White House.
Trump is neck and neck in the polls and ahead in some key battleground states. But you say that Trump is in trouble and he knows it. Why?
Well, the momentum is away from him. And as you know in politics, I'm sure it's very similar down here. She's catching a wave of momentum. And if you look at the demographics have changed dramatically since his last victory. Remember, he won that by about 150,000 votes in those swing states. And so she will obviously win the popular vote. And she's just getting geared up in those swing states. And so remember, she's only in the race maybe 45 days as of right now. And so it's going to take her a little bit of time to catch that momentum. But over the next 15 days, I think you'll see these spreads widen. And I'll just point out that he is under-resourced in those states. So the poll numbers right now mean little. They'll mean more in October. But remember, this is a get-out-the-vote election in the United States. Most people have already made a decision of who they're going to vote for. And it's just who's more organized in those swing states. 20 million baby boomers have died since the 2016 election that he won. And about 40 million Generation Zs have been added to the voting rolls over that 8-year period of time. So that demographic mix is harder on Trump. Some of the things that he did to Secretary Clinton are not going to work on Vice President Harris.
Hey, can I call you the Mooch? I feel like we're friends now. We've seen together.
I've been called a lot worse than that. You can call me anything you want, but I can just let you know I've been called a lot worse than that.
It's been
of course you can call me the Mooch.
It's been 7 years. You've worked for Trump for 11 days. Is it time to bury the hatchet and vote for your former boss?
No, I think he's a systemic danger to the United States. He represents something against the core values of the United States. So no, there's no time yet to bury the hatchet. And by the way, it's not personal. People say to me, oh, you got fired by the guy, so therefore you're aggrieved. It's just categorically not true. I supported him. I was fired in 2017, provided media advocacy and support for him up until August of 2019. Once he started attacking me, I'm a New Yorker. I can handle it. I think I called him the fattest president since William Howard Taft just to shake him up a little bit. But this is just not the person that should be the president. So yes, happy to bury the hatchet with him sometime in 2025 after he loses, and let's hope he doesn't run again in 2028.
Well, Anthony Scaramucci is in Australia as a guest speaker of the Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia Investment Summit in Newcastle. That's quite the mouthful.
It is.
Anthony, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy Oz.
Good to be here. Thank you, guys.
New poll shows an effective dead heat between the two candidates vying to be president. It raises the stakes even further for this week's highly anticipated presidential debate. Let's go now to our North America correspondent, Carrington Clark. Carrington, good morning. So what does this new poll show?
Well, it might indicate that the honeymoon that's been enjoyed by Vice President Kamala Harris since she was elevated to the top of the Democratic ticket has finally come to an end. This is the first national poll taken since her elevation that doesn't show her ahead. We had that kind of euphoric August for her, including her formal endorsement and ceremonial endorsement at the Democratic National Convention. But this poll has Donald Trump just ahead, 48% to 47%. It's important to point out that is within the margin of error for this particular poll, which is 3%. And again, it's always critical that we point out that polls are just a snapshot in time. But given that we are now less than 2 months before the presidential election, and even more importantly, we're only now a matter of days before early states allow their citizens to start voting, including the crucial swing state of Pennsylvania. They allow early voting from the 16th of September. It is so tight in this election, it's impossible at the moment to say who is the clear favourite. And it would indicate, though, that Kamala Harris, any honeymoon that she was enjoying has come to an end, and people are increasingly looking at these two candidates to decide who they want to be the president of the United States. So this is a potentially critical week for both candidates, given that we do have this presidential debate. It's the only one scheduled between the two. A lot of people were questioning the value of debates in recent times, but as we all know, it was the debate that spelled the end for current President Joe Biden, the former Democratic candidate, after his disastrous performance. So all eyes will be on how Kamala Harris in particular performs at the debate in the next couple of days.
It'll be a critical 90 minutes on stage, that's for sure, for both candidates. Carrington, thank you.
So anyway, let's get on to Kamala Harris, shall we? Now, we have over the past several weeks been part of a remarkable campaign to remake Kamala Harris from a joke to a sort of revolutionary, transformative figure who will turn the page, as she constantly reminds us, unburdened by what has been. As Lance Morrow, hi Dad, eloquently put it in the Wall Street Journal this weekend, quote, now, incredibly, Kamala Harris is Wonder Woman, high priestess of the politics of joy, a daughter of Jamaica and India, come to rescue reactionary white America from itself. The Democrats, in a few short weeks, have mustered their own cult of personality around Ms. Harris, transfiguring the erstwhile hack into a world historical heroine, unquote. And yep, that's about it, but none of this would be possible without the media, which once upon a time wrote disparaging stories about her, but which has now, like state media in a place like Russia or communist China, reversed course to support the new presumptive dear leader. Want an example? Well, here's the Washington Post, you know, the democracy dies in darkness guys. In 2021, they said, a Kamala Harris staff exodus reignites questions about her leadership style and her future ambitions. And here's the same newspaper, the Washington Post, this past weekend. Kamala Harris ran her office like a prosecutor. Not everyone liked that. Now, here's what the Post wrote in 2021, quote, staffers who worked for Harris before she was vice president said one consistent problem was that Harris would refuse to wade into briefing materials prepared by staff members and then berate employees when she appeared unprepared, unquote. Okay, that's 2021. But what are they writing now? Not that Kamala Harris, a woman who went to a third-tier law school and failed the California bar, wasn't doing the reading. No. The problem with Kamala Harris now is she just works too hard. And any criticism? Well, there's a DEI card to play there. Because as the Post writes, quote, the staff churn has spawned accusations of mismanagement by the vice president, but many Harris allies say that critique is overblown and sometimes rooted, you knew this was coming, in her gender and race, unquote. Well, this is, of course, just like how all the different news outlets that happily reported on Harris's appointment to the role of border czar turned around and said she'd never been the border czar. I don't know what you're talking about, when she was president. Of course, there is another reason why the press isn't looking too hard at what Harris actually stands for. Many of her ideas are simply plain bonkers, racially divisive, and, frankly, exceedingly unpopular with people if they're actually introduced to them. So here's Kamala Harris endorsing slavery reparations at the behest of notorious race baiter Reverend Al Sharpton.
But in the area of reparations for descendants of Africans enslaved, if you elected president, would you sign that bill if it came across your desk?
When I am elected president, I will sign that
bill. Anyway, her values are unchanged, that's what she keeps saying. And here she is seeming to endorse the idea that there should be separate laws for black people.
And we're talking about specifically something that happens to black people here in America. So we have to be specifically targeting to help those people. Because we put those people in a position, and everybody knows the history. Yeah. Everybody understands the history of America. That's right. America, you did this to these people. You should write laws for these people. Don't group us in with everybody, because everybody didn't happen to everybody. But let's be fair. We plan from behind the eight ball. We way back there, 400 years back there. We're not asking y'all to give us nothing. We actually write the law. Those of us who are willing and able to do the work, will do the work.
That's right.
That's what we need.
That's right.
That's right, indeed. And here she is talking about free speech, or actually why we need less of it.
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms, because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy.
Ah, yes, our democracy, because we all know that anything that goes against the narrative of the left is misinformation and hate, and anything is defensible in defense of, as she loves to put it, and the whole left loves to put it, our democracy. Which is why the media is spreading so much misinformation right now to cover up for its own favorite dear leader. Candidate.
And if it weren't for all of these subsidies, it's clear no one would be buying them, because Volvo announced during the week that they're canning plans to go completely electric by 2030. So clearly what they've got to do here, Lucy, is find any way possible to get these vehicles out there. And much like we've seen before with solar panels, you get cheap Chinese crap that is manufactured and essentially dumped upon Western countries like Australia for dirt cheap, because they just need to get it out of the Chinese market. And then in the end, we're stuck with all this terrible, bad for the environment. We've got to do something about it, but we've got millions and millions of the things.
Yeah. Well, we're in a unique position in Australia because we don't actually manufacture the vehicles now. So if we were to introduce a tariff like what the USA and the EU have, it kind of wouldn't really make sense. But then you look at the other manufacturing parts that you also need to consider in all of this, like the batteries, the maintenance, the labour and all of that, that Australia will be looking to have a stranglehold on, right? But here's that word stranglehold that I'm using, where China have that, the CCP. What would it be if they weren't coming in and threatening some kind of trade war or an issue if we weren't subscribing to whatever it was that they were selling? So it's a really interesting situation, and we know that the Albanese government is always curtailing to China, and that will not be in a real position to kind of have a position on this, really. So I find it quite fascinating, and where this is all.
I just want to know, the irony is, would you get rid of your Ford Falcon?
Oh my God,
is it 08?
The Falcon is doing much. There's another problem with the Falcon.
No more German cockroaches?
Apart from the no more German cockroaches, that has been done. Went to the electric sky. Alan, thank you very much. But yeah, no, I scraped it in the Aldi car park. We all knew about that, and I'm sure that's been keeping you up at night. Now there's something wrong with the engine. Like it's I don't know. There's something just. It's killing me. And
so you know what?
I'll take anything. I would take a push bike at this point over the
But do you want a BYD? Do you want a BYD?
Well, the irony here, of course, is that the argument for Australia introducing electric vehicle targets and emissions limits for other cars is that Australia was becoming a dumping ground for all the old gas-guzzling clunkers from Europe and the USA and other markets because they had tougher regulations than we do. So they were coming here. And now it appears that we're becoming a dumping ground for electric vehicles that they can't get rid of in other jurisdictions.
Why don't we manufacture our own cars over here? Like, that's a genuine question.
Well, we did do it until...
It was so
years
expensive.
ago. It was prohibitively expensive and it requires...
This will fail because the issue with electric vehicles is not the price. I know they're expensive, but that's not the price.
People don't want it.
The reason why Volvo and Toyota and VW are cutting down on their production of electric vehicles is people have worked out that they're hopeless. The problem is refuelling. You get a petrol car, you refuel in 3 minutes. The minimum it takes to refuel an electric vehicle is half an hour. You give up, and you have to do it every day. Not once a week, but every day.
And that's...
So everyone's worked that out. No one wants them anymore.
And that's why people are going to hybrids, right? There is an answer in front of us. If only we could just go where the market tells us to go. Strange idea.
I haven't seen this much controversy around someone going electric since Bob Dylan at the Newport Folk Festival.